Welcome, welcome all. We are here with Raz T Slasher. We got a book coming out. Well, actually, it came out yesterday.
It's still within, the horror season. We're Day of the Dead today. Yesterday was Halloween. It kind of rolls into each other. So I'm going to call it the same day.
Yeah,
One big 48-hour day.
that works. So tell us about your book. This is not the first time you've tried to publish this one.
No. So I won't go into all the gritty details, because professionalism. But I
Right.
will say it was a long path. The first publisher I had was a good friend of mine. Um, Also back from the AOLRP days, just like you. Um, she just took on a lot in the beginning. She just took on a lot. Great person. I still talk to her. I love her to death. It just didn't work out, So I ended up not publishing with her and going to a different publisher, also from AOL Gaming. Now they're also still friends of mine, but the book came out and it just wasn't quite what I wanted. It wasn't what I was looking for. And then they put out a short story collection for me, and that one went well. The short story collection was great through them. It just the book wasn't what I wanted. So it's like, you know what? I'll take this. I've been doing all this research. I'm going to try self-pub. If you've never self-published and you want to take like publishing seriously, you got to dump serious money into that to make it work. Like more money than sorry, my daughter was calling me. More money than I'm capable of putting into it. So I was like, man, I need a publisher. So I got another publisher. Unfortunately, after about 2 years or so of just not being able to get my book published with them, they took on too many authors, I think, over a period of time that they just couldn't.
It's it's not a hard thing to do. Everybody
Yeah,
wants somebody to help them, and
yeah. And there's a lot of great work out there, and you want to
yeah,
say yes, you want to help people, and that's all it was. They just wanted to help too many people, and in the end, their company kind of ended up changing gears and going a different route. And then I found you guys over at Fake Horror and did a shitload of anthologies so far with you guys. I'm excited to do more in the future, and I love the process so much that I'm like, okay, this is home now. This is where it's going, and it's been a great experience ever since I sent you guys everything, the whole process all the way through. I mean, I'm an irritating asshole sometimes. Like I'm gonna
you
make
have a
mistakes.
good press.
There's that. Well, I mean, I noticed a lot of things. I'm going through school for now my master's degree and English literature with a focus on creative writing and editing. So I'm seeing 50,000 things as I'm writing it, and I always tell myself that first draft you don't edit yourself. You do not edit your first draft. Your
I
second
still
draft,
have that problem.
trust me, I still have days. So NaNoWriMo actually, which I'm participating in again starting today for the seventh year in a row, and I will win again. Taught me to not edit because with Nano, you've got to do 50,000 words in a month. So you cannot edit. If you stop to edit, you're not going to meet your daily goal, let alone finish. So that is really what helped me get into that gear of just the first time through, I'm just writing it. And the second time through, I'm revising, I'm adding, and a little bit of editing and just moving forward. But with the mime, that was before I really got into that process. So there were still things, even though, this was the time it had been published, that I wanted to add, that I wanted to change, that I caught that I didn't catch any other time I looked at it with fresh eyes. So it was interesting to go back and see that story and to finally put it where I needed it to be.
Well, I must admit, I liked the title change. You went from The Mime to Silence is Crimson, and Silence is Crimson's a much better title.
That's kind of a funny story too, because originally the name was never the mime. That was the placeholder because that was the name of the film. We were actually making a film and releasing it the same day that the original publishing of the book was done. So
That's a lot.
it was a
One.
lot of work because I wrote the script. 99% of it was me writing it. I had a partner for a little bit. It just didn't work out, but I kept some of the stuff that he wrote in it and gave him credit for it. I also play the mime in the movie. So, and anyone that knows me knows that I've been a slasher and monsters and so many horror films. It's crazy. So that was fun. And my wife at the time, now my ex-wife, was the director, but she never directed before. So I was also assist directing. I was also helping, come up with special effects ideas, but luckily we had a good team for that. So it was just a roller coaster of book, movie, book, movie, book, movie. And the name just went by the wayside and never got changed. But the tagline for the movie was always Silence is Crimson. So it's always been kicking around in my head. And I think the self-published version was the Books of Madness Volume 1, and I'm just like, no, I got to drop that. Now it's the Riverside Chronicles now, because that's where it happens at. Riverside, Ohio is where everything, period, that I write, every book, every short story you'll find of mine on Reddit or anywhere else, it's all in or around the same town in Ohio. So it just made sense that I would subtitle it the Riverside Chronicles.
Right. It is possible to self-publish without putting a whole lot of money in, but you got to be putting a whole lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely do it. But when you're looking at it to the point where, I'm getting my master's degree now, I'm trying to get up there with the big guys. And to do that,
you do need help,
a
honestly.
lot. And I've got great friends that are editors, artists, a lot of awesome people that, some people owe me favors, but I don't like to ask them to do that for free. Unless it's a business arrangement. I'm just like, I can't pay you for your work. I know you're willing to do it for free, but I want you to buy my book. So why would I ask you to do that for free?
Yeah, because there's a lot that goes into publishing, and it takes a lot of different directions depending on the book.
Oh yeah.
And I've got to say, Fakor has absolutely enjoyed having you writing with us, because you make it easy.
I try, but what a lot of people don't know about me is I suffer from pretty severe borderline personality disorder, so I don't always get social cues. I don't always know if I've said something that I probably should have said. It's easier when I'm writing, because I can look at what I've written and be like, and a personal message to someone, oh wait, maybe that doesn't sound right. I should change that. But when I'm talking, there's no filter. If it hits my brain, it's just out of my mouth before it's even a question. So I'm always backtracking, like, hey, if that sounded weird, I am so sorry.
I know the feeling. I have a lot of that myself. So the no filter thing is not something that's really easy to work with.
50% of people tell you, oh, you're a breath of fresh air because you're telling me like it is. You're giving me the unaltered truth. Like, you're just shooting straight, and I love it. The other 50% of people are like, I don't know how to handle you. I'm angry, or I'm upset with you now. Go away.
Yeah.
Like, okay. That's, that works.
At least they are, aware of who you are. Because
it's hard not to know.
I mean, Cindy and I both end up doing the editing thing for the anthologies, and the last few times it's gotten to where, it started off whenever I would separate out the anthologies, I would just pick the ones that I felt like I could edit easily, because I've said this before, I barely graduated high school. I've taken classes and such, but I haven't taken them in a way that ended me up with any proof, certificates or anything.
Right.
So when I edit, I try and pick the ones that I'm going to be a good match with.
Right.
And Cindy has accused me of keeping you all to myself, because usually yours is one of those that I pick, because editing yours is easy enough to do. You have a very clear voice in your stuff. There's no changing of the voice throughout the stories.
Which is hard, because sometimes I feel like there's 50 voices in my brain with all the characters, like, while I'm writing it. So I'm not always sure if it's all clear sometimes. You know what I mean? It's sometimes when you write it, you look at it yourself, you're like, I don't know.
I know that feeling. Now, you said the Riverside Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
That indicates that you're planning on putting out more than just the one book.
So I posted yesterday a picture of my opening screen for NaNoWriMo, and the project listing does say Silence is Crimson 2. And if I recall from an excellent conversation that I had with you and Cindy, I think we were shooting for somewhere around, I think it was spring or so,
Yeah.
for that one. So yeah, the the characters in this particular book, it is a trilogy. It's intended to be a trilogy, but some of these characters, you'll see them in prequel books, unrelated to the struggle with the mime. There's a couple I'm working with. There's one about a haunted attraction that's really famous in Ohio. It's like it's right at the Ohio, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania border. It was back in the '70s. It was called Haunted Hospital, and it is a legendary attraction. It's in haunt history, like people talk about it. Haunt historians know all about it, but no one knows exactly why it closed down. There's a lot of different. Well, some people do officially now, but there's a lot of rumors on people that died there, all kinds of things. Is why was it only open for one night? So I took that idea and had this concept of this group of friends, just like the group of friends that I haunt with now, get together and decide to cash in on the name and create this, one night only a giant event with a freak show and fire breathers and all this stuff. And you've got to go through this haunted hayride that mysteriously breaks down as part of the story and becomes a haunted trail that you have to walk up to the haunted spooky house on top of the hill. And it's
Oh
this
my
whole,
God, that sounds amazing.
yeah, it's this whole giant project. And then of course there is this story I've been dying to write for a very long time. I want it to be a movie, but the budget for that's going to be crazy. It's very much like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, but instead of tomatoes, they are melons from outer space. Because melons roll easier than tomatoes. So when I was thinking about the movie, I thought, what fruit's going to roll a lot easier? So I
Right.
went to Sam's Club, and they have a surprisingly large array of different kind of melons. And then I went to this place called Jungle Gyms. That's an international market, and it's got like 20 different kinds of melons. And I,
Right.
and I found this one that looks like it's from space. It's crazy. So I'll probably get like shots of it to include in that book at some point. But that will also be happening in the same general Riverside area.
Awesome. That sounds like that's going to be a fun read.
It's a weird
Honestly.
one. It's going to lean more towards the comedy aspect of sci-fi and horror, probably. But honestly, there's a little comedy in everything I write. Uh, Silence of Crimson's got some comical parts. The way I see that for this series is when I feel like I've given you too much to think about, like I've gone too in depth with maybe description or the horror end of things, or I've got you on your seat, I can use that comedy to then go down and help you put the pieces together to let you calm down and breathe a minute. And that's really just only so I can hit you about 10 times harder than before the comedy happened. When you read, pay attention to that. And when you get to that comical part, you know that it's about to get even crazier in about 2 seconds.
Sounds like that's going to be a lot of fun.
I hope so.
Well, some of the best horror movies, at least in my opinion, have that comedy aspect. They really do.
Definitely.
And a lot of times, people, when they write horror, don't want to include that because they think, oh, it's not serious enough. No, it's got to have the comedy aspect, or else it's not going to be any fun.
Yeah, even if it's just like a joke, a random dad joke out of nowhere, just something with one character. I look at Scream. A lot of people say that that's a serious. Some people say it's not a comedy horror, but a horror comedy where this is more on the horror. But if you really look at it, really is just a great horror film. It's just they've got Jamie Kennedy in there, this awesome comedian who just delivers these lines as Randy in just the right way that just makes you laugh or it makes you groan, and then bam, someone's dead, like right back there behind him, and then it gets serious again. So you need that comedy relief a little bit to put the pieces together and just give someone's brain a chance to just kind of think about what they just saw or what they just read. Or
Well, even in the classics, Day of the Dead, George A. Romero. Okay, that has so many one-liners and just great little jokes to offset the tension.
it does.
And most of the best horror films have that, the offsetting of the tension, because if you stay tense too long, well, you're not going to enjoy it.
Yep.
It's going to just go straight heart attack bill.
Yeah, I can think of a good example of that. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre had no comical, and the actor they tried to put in was Shelley, the guy in the wheelchair, and they kind of he kind of almost went the comedy route, but he really just became an annoying character that you wanted to see die about 2 seconds after he started talking. But the way that that he made that was just so intense all the way through. And then you look at the other slashers that came after, like Freddy and Jason, where they had all those movies had tons of comical moments in it.
Oh yeah.
And even Halloween, the first Halloween, it had the comical moments. It had some of those moments, where John Carpenter would let you breathe. But the Texas Chainsaw Man, it was a ride. It was an experience.
I think the remake actually turned out better on that one, just simply because the remake had more of the comedy in it.
It did, and that helped. But the reason why I love the original one so much is because it was an art project. It was literally a masterpiece. There was no music, none. It was just the sound effects, the dialogue, and what was happening before you. It was a simple story, but it was a story that was told so well and so beautifully that you forgot that it was simple about 20 or 30 minutes into the movie. And I actually used the it's funny because when I was writing the blurb for the book this time around, I actually used a modified version of the opening monologue that you hear the narrator say from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I just altered it to make it about the events of my book and stuff, but it's very much the opening monologue to that, and a lot of sequences in the book with the murders. It's a throwback to 80s slasher films. It really is. There are some one-liners in there. There's a lot of that because you've got this killer that is this being from another universe. It's a Lovecraftian creature, and it somehow gets sucked into our dimension after this great flood occurs in Dayton, Ohio, in Riverside, and it finds this guy that's dying and takes him over. So all the talking that happens between the guy who just happens to be dressed like a mime happens internally. So all their dialogue is going on, ping ponging back inside his brain. So all the one-liners, while people are dying, they don't hear them. The people that are getting killed do not hear anything. It is just dead silence. It's just all going on in his head, and it's driving this character crazier and crazier when he should have died, at some point 30 years prior.
Um, okay, my brain just popped.
you're,
I had something.
you're good. To build on that, if you pay attention to the characters' names, there's some obvious ones, but one of the main characters, the chief of police, is John Romero for John Carpenter and George Romero. You've got one of the other main characters is Samantha Boone. I took Boone because that was the name of the main character in my favorite horror film, Nightbreed. So you'll see a lot of little things, addresses, um, police codes that I slightly altered. I actually got to the guy that played the police chief in my version of the movie was an actual police chief. He's also
Really?
yeah, he was a police chief in a small town, just like this one in my book. He was ex special forces, all kinds of things. So he was like our expert on set, but also while I was writing every portion of anything law enforcement related, it is 100% legitimate and by the book when it comes to their procedures and their police codes and all that stuff. I got really deep into that one. Our first conversation about it was a 7-hour phone conversation where I'm at my laptop just asking questions and just making notes for 7 hours. And we'd only known each other for like a couple months up until that point. It was insane.
Nice. Um, if everything goes the way we're hoping and this makes it big, what are the chances of redoing the Mime movie?
Pretty good. Honestly, I have better equipment than I had when me and my friend Jason made that movie. Definitely better equipment. Um, some of the actors that did it want to come back. Some of them would, by the time I probably get to, maybe a little bit too old for it. But there's always other, other places I can put them, other characters that I can put them in now that didn't quite exist in the movie before because there's parts of the movie we just, for sake of time, had to leave out. And there was a fire that struck our principal photographer, and a lot of our footage was damaged in that fire. So I don't promote the movie heavily because of that. We just never felt like it was the project, just like the book, that we wanted it to be. So there are parts where we just had to do this weird flash and kind of fade to black and then fade up on another scene. There's a couple points where we were forced to do that. An hour and 35-minute movie turned into, I think, like 87 minutes. or if that. I don't even think it's that long. I think it's like 78 minutes or 79 minutes. So it was a really big hit for us. So we want to redo it. We would love a chance to get in there and do it again. But I think having better source material this time, because I was literally writing the script. I was writing a couple scenes within a week of going to film them. So the script technically got finished before the book was finished. I did the book in the downtime of all the editing that took almost a year because of the fire damage. So it was a backwards process. So this time, all the material would be there. I would be able to write the whole script. It'd be so much easier to do now. And I think we could film it in maybe about 2 or 3 months, I think. And I think I could get that whole project done, edited and out the door in a little under a year, probably at this point.
That would be quite impressive.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot of fun, I'm sure.
Yeah. We've also talked about why stop at a movie. If, since I'm doing a trilogy and there's all these moving parts to it, and part two picks up really soon. It picks up really soon from the first one. It's crazy how the timeline works. So we thought about rolling it into and making it like a limited run series or something like that as well. But, your basic 42 minutes episodes with commercials be an hour long or whatever, but actually making like something that where each season's like 8 episodes. That way we have more time to tell the story we want to tell. 8 episodes is not that bad. It takes longer to film, obviously, of course.
Right.
But we just kind of felt that something like that might actually work better with how things are today. People want more content. If they like a story, they want to see more. And anybody can make a movie, but we challenged ourselves and did a nearly 3 full season long series about Slender Man and put it on YouTube. It's no longer there. A couple of us had a falling out, so we decided to can the project and kind of just remove it. But we learned that we are actually maybe more set up for doing television shows than actual movies. So it was a weird, random backward process to find that out. So that could also be something that happens in the future.
Wow. Definitely keep all of us informed, because I know personally I'd like to see that.
I would definitely still want to play the mime though, man. That was a fun role. Like there's no speaking. It is all just your eyes, like your intensity, your physical movements. And I'm a classically trained actor, so that was something in horror films that I'd gotten to do a little bit, but I really got to show my chops and just get in there and just do this crazy stuff, man. It was, I think at one point in time I strangled a girl with her own intestines, but the way I did it was just so fluid and artful that it freaked me out a little bit when I watched it after.
Well, one of the best roles I've ever seen was Jason, because he has no dialogue.
Oh yeah, it's tough, man. I've hung out with Kane Hodder on and off. Great guy. He was Jason in a couple of the movies, and
he was Jason in most of the movies.
Less than half. It was well less than half when he was officially Jason. But the reason why people say he was Jason for most of the movies before he started playing Jason, anytime something like stunt wise would have to occur with Jason, he would step in and do a lot of the stunt work and stuff. So he was doing the stunt work before he played the character. And of course, now one of his biggest things is Hatchet. He plays Victor Crowley in Hatchet, and those movies are fantastic. But I mean, I learned some stuff from him. Definitely, conversations at conventions, hanging out a little bit afterwards. Like again, I don't know him personally or anything, just mostly conventions and hanging out and stuff. But I definitely learned a lot from him before I took on that role about how to do that silent actor mixed with a lot of my theatrical stuff. Because there were no stunts. I mean, for me in the movie, not really. I had to fall down. I can face plant with my hands.
Right.
And that was maybe some of the most I had to do. But I want to do a little bit more, I think, if we ever go back and revisit.
Well, like I said, it should be interesting, because I know the book is interesting. So anything you base off of it has got to be.
Yeah, and I'll say big chunks of that book, like backstories and people's backgrounds, are completely real people. They are 100% real people. The main character, Riker, that becomes the creature later, that is a direct copy of my brother. His name is Ryan Jenkins. Not my real brother, but we've been best friends. We had been best friends since we were 2, and he was with us every vacation, every summer, every holiday. So he was basically my brother.
Yeah, my eldest has a brother that's just like that. I used to babysit for him, and the two of them bonded. So it's yeah,
That's
I get that.
that's how it started for us. You know, he was a family friend. Parents were a family friend of my dad, and my mom started babysitting, and they just and we lost him on 11/11/11 not too long after he got out of the Air Force. So this was also my way to deal with his death in a lot of ways by bringing him so in the forefront of my brain at the time when I started writing this. That I mean, I know what happens to his character. I've got the whole trilogy planned out. I know exactly what's happening. I know how it's going to end, and a lot of those things just give me that chance to say an actual goodbye to him, kind of like I missed before. And of course, you got the police chief, which is heavily, again, built on my buddy Jim Cooper, who played the chief and who was the police chief. And there's just these little elements. I think Riker's friends, Leslie and Eddie, in the book are based on me and Ryan's best friends growing up, Leslie and Eddie. There's a lot of them that are actually in there too. You know, it's there's just so many little things like that from people I've known all my life. Every location I wrote about is a real location that you can go to here around town. And I know the location so well that sometimes I would just go to the location and I would sit there and I would, walk myself through it mentally. Like, this is where I want this to happen. That's where I want that to happen. Unfortunately, we couldn't film in a lot of these locations. We had to kind of go elsewhere for a lot of the filming. But during the writing process, I just went to the places nearby. Some were only a 5-10 minute drive. Some were only a 30-40 minute drive. But they are definitely all here. So if I'm ever Stephen King level famous, we can do a whole tour of the city and it'll be fantastic.
I'm not sure how Stephen King ended up being the um, level of famous that everybody wants to reach, but someone recently was joking about my books, going, "Well, hopefully you'll be Stephen King level famous sometime." And hearing you say that just makes me laugh because it's just something I'm hearing a lot lately. You know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the two authors that people seem to attribute to, oh, I want to reach that level of success, and I'm going to leave politics and everything out of it because I just don't get into that kind of thing. But J.K. Rowling and Stephen King are usually the two people that say, oh, you could be the
Yeah.
next J.K. Rowling, you could be the next Stephen King, and they had a very different paths in life, but also similarities. They both come from a lot of struggle. I know if you read Stephen King's on writing book, which is one of my textbooks right now for the semester I'm in for my master's degree. He talks a lot about the struggles that he faced in his home life, his family life when he was growing up. Just a lot of the things that he went through that kind of shaped him into what he became, the struggles as a writer, trying to get things out there, the stacks of rejection letters, and to just, that he just didn't give up. Yeah, I mean, he threw one of his most famous novels pretty much away. He was done with it. It sucked. His first novel, and his wife came and grabbed it up and said, "No, this is good," and she made that happen. So this was one of those things that just you never know when that's going to happen, or even if you don't see the merit in your work, it just takes that one amazing person in your life to see it for you.
Right. Um, I think we're about ready to call this, but before we go, is there anything that you want to tell the readers or
Yeah,
uh,
definitely. A couple things real quick. Number one, if you are located anywhere near Ohio or just want to make a long drive and have nothing to do this coming weekend, I do haunt with a lovely, an amazing group of people over at Hell's Dungeon in Dayton, Ohio. You can legit type that into Google Maps and it will take you right to our parking lot. We're located around the back in this really creepy little strip mall, and like the back entrance looks like somewhere you might get stabbed, but I promise you, if you get stabbed, it's a fake knife. Don't worry. But you walk down into the basement of the whole strip mall, and that's where it is. It's called the dungeon because you feel like you're in a dungeon. Like the scenery when you're walking down looks like a dungeon. And we have got some of the greatest actors I've ever seen in a haunt. Our special effects team is damn near Hollywood film level. They are truly amazing. Our owners, our managers, everyone that works at that place. We love what we do. We love each other, and you can see all of that in the way we interact, the way we scare you, just everything. And I know last year when we did one of the anthologies, I went live from there, and I was Beetlejuice, and I did do Beetlejuice for a while this year. But as of a couple of weeks ago, he's been retired. I now play this new character named JB Rotten, who is half Doomhead from Rob Zombie's 31 and half like proper Louisiana mixed with a really seedy 80s carnival barker. He's a lot of fun. He's kind of an asshole, but he's a good guy. And I do have a mini podcast featuring him as the main character that's probably going to start coming out here in the next month or two called the Owlite Circus Podcast. So I've been working on that, keeping that haunt fresh in my mind because we might be closing after this coming weekend to the public, but that starts build season, that starts planning season. So if any of you haunters are out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you never leave the haunt, no matter what time of year it is, just period. So even if you can't come to my haunt, find a local haunt, go and support it. Now more than ever during this pandemic, if you feel comfortable enough and they have good policies about their distance and their masks, they need the love, man. Definitely go down there and support them. But other than that, I hope you really like the book. I'm a very odd person with a very odd point of view in a lot of situations. Um, it's definitely a love letter to 80s slashers. It's a love letter to H.P. Lovecraft. It's a love letter to all the people in my life, including you guys, over at Fake, or including you guys, definitely, that kind of not only helped me along my career and, my passion, but helped me see it happen. And final shout outs also to my Rotten Family crew, Odd Directions, and Right. Those are also some groups that really help keep me going when I don't think I can anymore. They keep me writing, they keep me creative. So I love you guys so much. And I'm just going to keep talking unless you tell me to shut up. So,
Well, only because I don't think that people will keep watching
no,
if we go on too awful much longer.
let's be honest. They probably tuned out like 10 minutes ago, but that's okay. I don't mind. I will talk to myself when this is over.
Well, it's been a pleasure. So I'm going to stop the broadcast while we're still somewhat good.
That sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for helping me get this out there and helping me have a future again as a writer. So I love you guys so much.